With a Hannity exclusive, for the first time on national television, one of the 4 alternate jurors in the George Zimmerman murder trial is breaking his silence. He is known only as Juror E54, and he's agreed to appear on this program in silhouette in order to protect his privacy. Sir, thank you for being here.
No, thank you.
All right, now, you were an alternate. Were you disappointed you were an alternate?
Yes, I was. I was hoping to be able to go back and deliberate with the other jurors.
And you would have agreed with them. I know Valerie Boy interviewed you, and you agreed with what the jury verdict was?
That's correct. I did. Yes.
All right. What evidence stood out the most in your mind?
Well, it's several things. One was the non-emergency call by George Zimmerman, his mannerisms on the call, Rachel Jantel's testimony, the 911 call, the ear witnesses, the John Good's eyewitness testimony, and mostly I think the biggest thing was the injuries.
Yeah, so tell us, why were the injuries so important to you? Because you didn't need injuries in this case for justification of use of force.
Well, that's true, but I think it demonstrated that there was a physical attack going on by Trayvon Martin to George Zimmerman.
Are you convinced the 911 call was George Zimmerman?
I am by using some of the other testimony and some of the other evidence. Then I am convinced that was him. Yes.
Yeah. The law and the jury instructions that were given were very clear. It says you have to believe force is needed to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm. Do you believe that George Zimmerman believed that in that moment?
I think that he did, and I based that on the fact that I believe that's him screaming, and just the nature of the screams made me believe that he felt that he was in imminent danger.
What did John Good, the only eyewitness in the case, what did his testimony mean to you?
Well, I think that gave convincing evidence that Trayvon Martin was on top of George Zimmerman. John Good identified that George Zimmerman was the one on the bottom.
Yeah. All right. Rachel Jantel, her testimony has gotten a lot of criticism by some, a lot of commentary. You said her testimony was important to you. Why?
Well, I was able to take some of her testimony based on when her call with Trayvon Martin ended and when she reconnected. Some of the conversations that she was having with him at that time placed him down by where his father was staying. And at the same time, on George Zimmerman's phone call with the non-emergency, at the same time frame, he was still up at the top of the T.
Yeah. Now let me go back to the 911 call for just a minute, because there was conflicting testimony, and you think it was the injuries and John Good's testimony that told you that it was probably George Zimmerman screaming.
Yes. Say it again. The screaming and John Good's eyewitness testimony.
You know, there was a weekend of protests. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I assume probably you are. And there's a push for civil rights charges against George Zimmerman. What is your reaction to that?
Well, as far as the protests go, I completely understand and can appreciate the public's passion towards Trayvon Martin. But the public has the opportunity to judge the case on the basis of using their emotions and feelings and sympathies. And as a juror, you're not allowed to do that. And I think it's important for the public to realize that the jurors in this case had to use just the evidence that was presented to them in court, had to apply it to the law, and that was applicable to the case, and then the jury instructions. There was no place, and even the jury instructions specifies that there's no place in there in your returning a verdict the use of your emotions and your feelings. And I know it had to be hard for those jurors to overcome that.
You know, some are now even calling for the release of these jurors' names. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I think that they should stay public, private, and as long as they can, as long as the court will allow them.
You know, you're not identifying yourself here tonight. Are you concerned for your own safety?
Yeah, I am concerned still. My family's still concerned. I think, and there's no reason to add any more risk, by becoming public.
How aware? I'm just curious. How aware during the trial were you that the country was watching? You knew there were cameras in the courtroom, but how aware were you that the country was watching?
Well, I think we knew that they would be watching. We knew it was a high-profile case, but we had no visibility into it other than the cameras in the courtroom. We could not see what was going on outside, and we did not get any news or anything at all while we were being sequestered. We had no information at all coming in.
You had no radio, no television, no access to the newspapers?
Correct. Whatever we had was monitored. If we got a newspaper, pieces were clipped out of it that were pertinent. TV was monitored on what we could watch, and so.
Did you gather any information of any racial animosity or racial profiling in this case?
No, I didn't see anything in the evidence that was presented in court that there was racial profiling. He just identified Trayvon Martin as a suspicious guy, and I don't see anything in there at all related to race.
Now, there was one interview in this case was my interview with George Zimmerman, and the other one was the day after when he went with the police without a lawyer. Did George Zimmerman's testimony in his own words have an impact on you?
No, I did not use those testimonies in my evaluation. I based it solely on the actual direct evidence of his telephone conversation in the non-emergency call.
What about a lot of people saying, well, George Zimmerman should have just stayed in his car? You know, at one point, the 911 operator said, where is he now? And then later he said, well, we don't need you to do that, meaning following him. How did you interpret that?
Well, I think he got out of his car to observe. He lost sight of him, and he just wanted to get an idea of where he was headed. He did tell the operator after he got out of the car that he was headed down to the back entrance, but then he lost sight of him, and I don't think he followed him. He had every right to be there where he was.
Let me ask you this, and it'll be my last question to you. I have my own theory, because I think this is a terrible tragedy, but I do believe the jury came to the right verdict legally based on the evidence, the injuries, et cetera, as you do. I actually think it was a terrible misunderstanding that night. I think George Zimmerman, his neighborhood had a lot of crime, and so he saw somebody he didn't know close to a house, and I think he was rightfully suspicious. I have in my own head an idea that maybe Trayvon Martin was next to the house because it was raining heavy that night. And then for whatever reason, Trayvon felt either threatened or didn't want to run away, and he attacked George, and this is what the result is. Do you have any thoughts on my theory or your own theory?
Well, both parties had the right to be where they were. Trayvon was innocent, up until the point where he physically attacked or punched or beat George Zimmerman, and he might have just been staying out of the rain. He was just talking to Rachel Zantel, and for some reason he came back to meet up with George, and things happened the way they happened. But all right, they both had opportunity to make other decisions, and they didn't do.
All right. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. And I hope they don't release the names of jurors. I think it's unfair, especially in a high-profile case. But thank you for being with us.
Okay. Well, thank you.
And thank you for serving.